What's that in the sky? It's a bird. It's a plane. It's Talk Geekly!
Hey guys, welcome back to another awesome episode of Talk Geekly. I am Pendragon here with my good friend Job for a Cody, the Gotham Knight, and we're ready to tickle that G-spot.
Yes, we're sliding right into the latest and the greatest from comic books, video games, and much more from the geek culture. We have a lot of awesome topics to talk about this week. But before we start anything, I'd like to pay a little bit of tribute to Justin Ponster, an amazing, incredible comic colorist that just passed not too long ago. It's always very, very sad moment in comic book history when a man of such great stature, leaves the earth and paints the way. He's most known for Death of Wolverine, and several other comic books, but the one I was touched the most from was that one. Just looking at his catalog of just art he's done, it's amazing, and it's a really sad moment for comic book enthusiasts across the world.
Yeah, it certainly is, and Justin's been around, or was around, since the early 2000s. He actually did a lot of work for Wildstorm. So I've been very familiar with this guy because he did a few Danger Girl issues back in the day when I was still in high school. And it is sad, like you said. I mean, he was fighting a public battle with cancer for a little over 2 years. And, last Saturday, May 18th, he did pass away. So we do want to give our respects to him and, of course, pass our condolences on to all of his friends and family. With that out of the way, we can go ahead and get into some comic reviews for you guys.
Absolutely. We're starting off fresh with Batman Beyond 32. We last left Batman, aka Terry, as he was stuck to what looked like to be his oncoming death by Split. Split was a really cool villain. I know we really didn't touch too much on him, but Split pretty much can split himself into two different villains. So it's like two villains in one. And they really put the whipping on Terry and stuck him to, I want to say it was like a gravity generator that was going to suck his bones through this vent. And Terry's brother's flipping out the Batcave, wanting to save his brother, and Bruce Wayne could really not care less. He's like, there's nothing we can do. I'm sorry. This is it.
Wow, so Bruce is just ready to let poor Terry just get his bones sucked out like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Matt then comes up with an idea that does save Terry, but victory is short-lived. We see Bruce go off to the casino to start gambling some money. And Terry finds himself in trouble again. And we find out that Split not only can split, himself into two people, but he also has speedster abilities. Without diving too much, the battle does get intense, and this could spell trouble for Terry, as well as something strange really going on in Arkham Asylum. Keep in mind that the Joker, just died a couple issues ago, and we have no idea who this person is at Arkham Asylum. I have an idea. It might involve a clown, but nothing has really pinpointed that yet. But stay tuned, because this is really starting to pick up the pace. Batman Beyond 32 was written by Dan Jurgens, art by Ande Parks and Rick Leonardi, if I pronounce those correctly.
Sounds good. Anything from Dan Jurgens is definitely guaranteed to be something special. So I'm glad you're still enjoying what's going on with Batman Beyond.
Yeah. What do you have for us in the world of Marvel?
Well, let's start off with some Venom action, guys, because I have been reading the Venom arc since that first issue and all the things that were leading up with Null. And of course, right now in Marvel, we've talked about it. We have the War of the Realms story arc, and this Venom issue 14 really does tie in nicely to what's going on within War of the Realms, because in War of the Realms, of course, after we already know Eddie has been losing his connection with the symbiote, but within War of the Realms, the evil dark elf Malekith has basically taken control of that symbiote, and we have Eddie he does not have that symbiote anymore, but he manages to get a pretty sweet ass suit from one of Malekith's witches, because the plan was to get him to become one of Malekith's lackeys, so to speak. Now, this suit is allowing Eddie Brock to do all the things he could do when he was Venom. However, he is 100% in control of all of his actions and thoughts, which that's something we were learning within the Venom arc, that all along the symbiote was actually implanting false memories in Eddie's mind, which were causing him to do some things that he normally would not have done. But within the pages of Marvel's Venom 14, at one point we see Eddie grow to the size of ice giants to put these guys down. And that's just another one of the cool new powers he has with this suit. I mean, you've never seen the Venom symbiote basically give him giant man powers. So yeah, he could do that now. And it's really interesting that all of this is just so that he can protect Dylan. I mean, he throughout the entire issue, he's constantly thinking about his son and where he left his son and what's going on outside, because like I said, this is all taking place during the War of the Realms arc. So there's just chaos everywhere. You've got ice giants in the street destroying buildings and things like that. So it's really, really sick what they're doing with Venom right now. I mean, the outfit looks awesome. And then at the end of this issue, I do have to spoil this, but Eddie changes his entire look. He at one point he says something like, I guess we're gonna have to make this somewhat Asgardian, and he's rocking this crazy looking Asgardian armor that's all black and white, but he looks so freaking sick. And this is written by Cullen Bunn with pencils by Iban Coelho. So, I mean, this is fresh and it's tying into War of the Realms really nice. So I need to keep reading this.
Yeah, it sounds like Eddie's newfound powers are pretty intense. Like, how do you think they compare to Venom, like the Venom suit? Like, do you think this new newfound power is going to be maybe a little bit stronger than the Venom suit that he had?
I mean, I personally would say it has to be. Like I mentioned, he grew to the size of an ice giant, which those guys probably are at least, maybe 50 feet tall, and he was never able to do that before. So this is power that he's never had. I'm digging it. I'm digging it for sure.
Do you think we're going to see a connection where Venom and Eddie, like, come back together, and then Eddie has this newfound power with the Venom suit?
Yeah, that's interesting you say that, because within War of the Realms, Malekith is doing something with the symbiote. So I feel like Eddie's going to play a huge role in this, and he's definitely going to eventually come back into contact with that symbiote, and hopefully it's for the better. So what's your next DC book you got?
Well, we dive into Detective Comics 1004. And let me tell you something, this one really took me for a spin. We actually get to find out the origin of the Arkham Knight. We get to find out the backstory and why she is so gung-ho to take Batman down. We find out that the Arkham Knight is none other than Astrid, who is the daughter of someone who works at the Arkham Asylum. And not to spoil too much, but like this issue is kind of like an origin story, so you really can't discuss it without spoiling it. We find out that Astrid was born in the middle of a prison outbreak, and that Batman was fighting off these prisoners and subduing them and bringing them back. And Clayman and the Joker and various other villains like helped Astrid's mom deliver the child. And that was insane to see, like, these villains, like the hardcore villains and murderers and everything, like taking care of a baby. You know what I mean? Newborn baby. And it's cut short as we see a batarang just slicing through the wall, because Clayman set up this wall to fend off, the prisoners. It was an outbreak. It was a riot. So these prisoners were trying to fight everybody, and these prisoners were coming for the baby. And, this band of villains were protecting Astrid. And you see a batarang.
I just
Go
wanted.
ahead.
I'm sorry. I just want to know. So, what were the villains you said that were protecting the baby besides Clayface?
Joker. I'd have to dive back into it.
Even Joker?
Yeah, the Joker was in there. Joker, I think, was there was a panel where the Joker was spanking the baby. You know how you always gotta spank the baby to get them to cry to clear out their lungs.
Yeah, now that's interesting because see, I was figuring that they were going to use villains that had ties to like children and in issues with their children, which is why they became villains. But you saying the Joker throws my theory outside the window. But yeah, keep going with this book. It's interesting.
Yeah, it was one of those things where I read it and I got sucked into it, but I didn't like reread it again to take notes of the villains. But we see this battering going through Clayface's I call him Clayman, sorry about that. Clayface's like wall of clay, and it severs the artery of Astrid's mother and just kills her.
Oh man.
Just instantly puts her down on the spot. So we find out why Arkham Knight wants to take down Batman. I will leave a little bit at the end and say that a huge army is rising up, an army that you might not be expecting, and Gotham is in for some war. This was written by Peter J. Tomasi? Sorry about that. Tomasi. My pronunciation game is just really subpar today.
It's okay. I think our listeners are starting to love it. It's all right. Keep going.
With art done by Andrew Hennessy and Bradley Walker.
All right, pretty good. Sounds good for sure. I think I should check that one out. But I'm gonna jump into Wolverine Infinity Watch #4, and I actually talked about this arc a few months back when it first started, and it began with a character by the name of Hector who was on death row, who actually ended up being possessed by the Infinity Stone, the Time Stone, which Adam Warlock had spread them across the galaxy, allowing them sentience so they could do whatever they chose. And the Time Stone decided it was going to go be part of Hector. But this book, we see Logan being burned alive. I mean, his flesh is just melting off of his body because the Raptors are trying to steal his adamantium claws at the same time that they're trying to remove the power of the Time Stone from Hector. And I mean, in this book, as it started in the first issue, we still have, of course, the unlikely duo of Loki and Logan, you know, who are working together to try to basically help Hector. But there's more to the story than we actually really know, because at the same time, we have a Wolverine from the future who he's possessed by the Phoenix Force, and he kind of knows what's going, like where this is going to be headed because of the time stream and all that. But I mean, in this issue, we also have the return of the Warbringer. He was in issue 3, I believe. And they had fooled him earlier into thinking that he had the Time Stone and he ended up leaving Earth. Well, he comes back, and I really hope that as this tale progresses, we get to see what happened with the other stones, where perhaps they might have went, what inhabitants or what body they might have chose to inhabit. But for right now, I'm really content with what they're doing with Hector. I feel like he's learning how to use the Time Stone and its powers. And I could see him becoming a major player within the Marvel universe. I mean, Loki, Wolverine, and a ghost dog. I don't think you could go wrong with those 3. But it's written by Gary Dugan. We got art from Andy McDowell. This is a good, fun book. I don't see this going longer for 5 or 6 issues. I forgot to check whether it was a miniseries or not. But I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, it really definitely does sound interesting to see that team up. And you said Wolverine had the Dark Phoenix Force?
Yes, there's a Wolverine from the future who is rocking the Phoenix powers.
Like, how is that going for him? Is he like psychotic as could be? Because the Phoenix Force never seems like it's something that just is something fun to have. It always seems like there's a lot of trouble going on with it.
Yeah, from the few times we've got to see him within this arc, it actually seems like he's got it in full control.
Okay.
So it doesn't seem like he's unstable at all. He's actually pretty funny drinking beers and arm wrestling with Thor.
Oh, man. Well, taking the wheel back, into DC Comics. This is something new I read, Justice League Dark 11. Now, keep in mind, I haven't really had a chance to dive into this. So we're diving right into the middle of it, and it is some chaos. Speaking of chaos, we start off with Wonder Woman as Zatanna finding Mordro, the Lord of Chaos. And from what I gathered from this issue, it seems like there's a huge thing going on. It's a make or break deal where magic is going to be essentially wiped out. And that's what I'm thinking is happening. I'm a little confused, like I said, but it involves like the destruction of Dr. Fate and his Lord of Order, just bringing upon this chaos in the world. And Wonder Woman and Zatanna are talking to Mordro, and he's a bad lad. Let me tell you something. He just like takes Zatanna's mouth and just like makes her flesh morph together. And it's just like, and he like is like has Wonder Woman tied up in a chair, just slapping her like, you're gonna learn chaos. And Wonder Woman's like, you hit me again, I'll kill you. And it like typical Wonder Woman. And yeah, without spoiling too much, they might be going down the wrong path at the end of this. And I might be finding out why this run is called Justice League Dark. You know, keep in mind, I'm not trying to be ignorant here. I haven't had much time to really dive into the comic run, but it got really grim at the end. And it's something where I'm taking the time to read the back issues for sure, because this run was just amazing. And the art was phenomenal. This was written by James Tynion IV, with art being done by Raul Fernandez and Alvarado Martinez.
So you're really digging this Justice League Dark, huh?
Yeah,
that's nice.
I started getting into the Justice League comics not too long ago, with Justice League, I think 24, and then the Justice League Dark, and both runs have me like sucked in. It's pretty intense.
And that's it's cool because the writer for Justice League Dark is actually the guy who wrote Batman versus Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So that'll tie in nicely for later on today. But I'm glad you are enjoying what he's doing with Justice League Dark, because I mean, I definitely enjoyed what he did with that comic book Batman versus TMNT. But let's hop back into Marvel here, because this is my last Marvel book for today. I have X-Force number 8. And I mean, this is hot. It's kind of, of course, in typical X-Force fashion, it's going to be gory, it's going to be bloody, it's going to be an all hell out fight. But our anti-hero team, of course, is thrust 2,000 years into the future, still trying to find what happened with young Cable, but also trying to see what Strife has planned for the world. And it's kind of messed up because, of course, for those of you that know Cable, you know that he has that techno-organic virus, but he's able to basically keep it at bay. Well, Strife found a way to remove all of the barriers and things like that were stopping it from running its course. So now we have young Nathan Summers with the techno-organic virus just ravaging his body, and things are looking rather bleak for our time-traveling mutant. But Strife... Oh, please, go ahead.
I was gonna say, Strife is always a bearer of bad news anytime he appears in comics. Really, what's his gimmick? What's his game for this issue? Like, is he world domination? You know, extinction of mutants? Like, what are we looking at?
Yeah, we've kind of been teased a little bit about it. It seems as of right now, basically Strife and the new Canonites, they have Rachel Summers. They're using Rachel Summers to project messages across the world to gather people, and Strife is basically sending out kill squads and killing all the opposition. So we don't have like 100% idea of what his full plan is. I'm assuming it's domination just because that's kind of Strife's thing, but he is killing quite a few people. And I mean, basically it comes down to, I mean, does the X-Force really have the power to stand against Strife with how many... I mean, he has a massive army, just many legions in this future timeline, but it definitely does continue to get better as the progression goes on. And Strife, I think, is the actual driving force because, you know, right before this arc began, Strife actually died. So seeing him come back, that kind of adds to the to the fire, so to speak, and is just fueling this entire arc into a downward spiral of death and despair, you know? Of course, the words are by Ed Brisson, and you got sharp-ass pencils from Dylan Burnett. This is a must-read, people.
Another must-read, back into the DC world, was Martian Manhunter 5. This, surprisingly, is the first Martian Manhunter comic I've ever read. Now, since we're doing weekly podcasts, it forces me to read comics I normally wouldn't pick up. And it's no offense to the comic run itself. It's just I'm more primarily, we all have our certain comic book runs that we drift to, For me, it's Batman. I really like Damage. Just all sorts of things like that. Anything dealing Batman, like I will pick over anything else. So Martian Manhunter issue number 5 really threw me for a loop. We have John, and we find out he's no longer the sole survivor of planet Mars. That's always been Martian Manhunter's thing. He was the only one from Mars. It was kind of his driving force in some of the animated movies and some of the comic runs. That was one of the things that pushed him through. And bear with me. You guys already know that my pronunciation game is really subpar today, so this is going to be even worse. The vicious criminal Sharn survived this epidemic of Honmir's curse, and now this villain is on Earth. John needs help from, it appears to be Diane, which is another Martian. Once again, I'm in the middle of this run, so bear with me. I do intend to catch up on it to kind of be a little bit prepared for issue number 6. But he's needing help from Diane, and she's holding a big secret. Now, we don't know what's going on. There's some really vivid flashbacks. As most of you know, Martian Manhunter's biggest weakness is fire. So we just see, at one point, we see a 2-page spread of him just busting out in boils, fully engulfed in flames, and just melting away and screaming. And then he just snaps out of it, and he's at the office. And his coworker's like, maybe you need to go get some rest. You don't seem well today. This was written by Steve Orlando, and with the art done by Riley Rossmo. And it was just, dude, the art was really awesome. Normally, naturally, I drift towards more realistic and realism. But like this art style just really captured my attention. And it was just so well crafted that I fell in love with this run, honestly, Penn.
Yeah, I saw some of the images that you posted, and I actually thought the same. I thought there's a nice fluidity and organic nature to the pencils from the page that you posted, and I definitely agree. That's some killer art.
But Penn, I think you're gonna be drifting from Marvel and diving into some more independent comics. Am I wrong?
Yeah, you're definitely not wrong. I actually stepped out for a moment because I wanted to bring something a little different this week. And I read IDW Publishing's Road of Bones issue 1. I didn't know what to expect, to be honest. The cover got a bunch of skulls. It's a white cover, pretty plain. But Road of Bones begins as a tale of the Soviet Union in the 1950s during Stalin's Red Reign of Terror. This first issue, it's kind of, so I'm a big superhero guy. I love superhero books. That's kind of my bread and butter. I don't really stray from that too often. So reading this book was definitely a pull in the different direction. But we're entrenched in a Soviet prison camp where the inmates they're just being stomped. And this is a bloody book. Really, really bloody. And of course, when the title is Road of Bones, I guess I should have expected that, right? But not only are they beaten physically, they're definitely beaten down mentally. And the first issue does a really good job to build up this idea that there's sort of dissension and that there's warring factions, both within the prison hierarchy, but also the government. And then all of a sudden, the book takes a rather unexpected turn into the realm of the supernatural. And that's when it really got my blood going. That's where I was like, okay, all right, I'm digging Road of Bones right now. I'm really, really intrigued by where this is headed. And I cannot wait for that next issue. This is a story by Rich Doek. and it's got art from Alex Cormack. Again, it's Road of Bones, issue 1. It's printed on the IDW label. Guys, check it out. It's an interesting book.
Yeah, I love when books start off with that, like where people are just beaten physically and mentally, and I'm a big fanatic of blood and gore. Surprisingly, a lot of people might not know that, but just the cover alone is really intriguing. You just see a road of bones, like skulls, and it's really, dude, the art seems like it's really well done and really has that eerie feeling about it.
Yeah, the art sets a nice tone. It definitely has a nice tone.
Yeah, it gives me a feeling like, you know, I love stories that start with like government, like brutal, like, you know, like camps and like experiments and how things like supernatural powers are just birthed from that. Like, I love stuff. I could eat stuff like that up all day long.
Yeah, so let's go ahead. Those were our books for you this week, guys. Make sure to check them out if they sounded like something that you were interested in. You know, you got Batman Beyond 32, Detective Comics 1004, Justice League Dark 11, and Martian Manhunter 5. And don't forget your Marvel books. You got Venom number 14, Wolverine Infinity Watch 4, X-Force number 8, and that independent book, the IDW publishing of Road of Bones number 1. And now we're going to get into some news.
Hot off the press, there's a nice little rumor floating around about Charlie Hunnam. Is it Hunnam or Hunnam? Hunnam, my bad. I wasn't a big Sons of Anarchy fan, so sorry for everybody out there with the pitchforks. But there's a big rumor going around that he might be the front runner to play Wolverine with the MCU closing phase 3, you know, with the end of Endgame. Marvel and Disney are looking to create something new for phase 4. And we have Captain Marvel and Spider-Man leading the way, but we need something huge. And we might see, you know, the likes of X-Men, Fantastic Four, and, you know, good old Wolverine clawing his way back. What's your thoughts on this?
You know, I'm cool. I'm loving the idea of Wolverine joining the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Definitely on board with that. However, I don't necessarily enjoy the idea of it being Charlie Hunnam. I loved him in Sons of Anarchy. I enjoyed him in Pacific Rim, but he is not who I picture Wolverine. And for those of you out there, guys, if you go onto Instagram at the Talk Geekly Instagram page, you can actually see who I believe would be the perfect choice for Wolverine, and that is actor Jai Courtney. This is the guy who played, I believe it was Boomerang in Suicide Squad, and he also played a character in the Divergent series. I think Jai Courtney is definitely the top pick. I'm kind of sad if it ends up being Charlie Hunnam. Got to be honest with you.
And real quick, while we're on this, David Harbour is kind of being hinted at being Fantastic Four thing in Black Widow. There's not a whole lot on it. It's just a little leak. You know, he might have a cameo as a thing in the Solo movie, or it might be a little bit more than that. But it was from the same source, that gave us the leak on Charlie. I just seen David Harbour was being hinted towards being the thing as well.
That's interesting. I had not heard that Thing might show up in the Black Widow movie. Well, let's jump into a little bit of video game news right now, because apparently Sony did confirm during an investor relations presentation that they are working on a TV show based on the Twisted Metal franchise. Now, this is actually really exciting for me because I remember Twisted Metal back in the day. I don't know. What, 95, 96. I loved that game. I played it constantly every single day. Axel was probably one of my favorite characters
I loved Axel, dude. Oh man, I don't know. Call me cliche. Sweet Tooth was a big favorite of mine too.
Sweet Tooth was cool, visually cool. The Joker thing, all that, the flaming skull, the flaming head, that's great. But I don't know. There was the play style for Axel. I had a lot more fun with him. But, we don't have a lot of information other than the fact that, he said it was a game that was, well, let's say who he is. Vincent Chiera. So that's the guy who basically heads up Sony's whole CEO and chairman guy, the big guy. He said, it's a game that was put out many years ago, and we're going to develop a TV series around that. So that is all the information we have on Twisted Metal. But within that same press conference, he did also say that the Uncharted movie, that's right, the Uncharted movie is currently in advanced development. So we could be seeing that very soon.
On to other news, it looks like there was a smash and grab as a crook steals comic books. He even cut himself and then tried to clean up the mess with a toilet bowl cleaner. He stole 14 books, totaling over $42,000. We're looking at some of the very first Avenger comic books, the first Iron Man book, and a rare autographed Spider-Man comic book. It's always really aggravating when you hear stuff like this, because it has to either be a customer that's been to that store multiple times enough to know, or it had to have been like something where an employee tied into it. And I'm not making speculation. It's just when you steal 14 books, you know what I mean? You know what you're looking for at that point. And this was done in Denver early this Sunday.
Yeah, this was at Mile High Comics, which is one of those comic book stores that are rather I can't even say how to say the word correctly, but it's one of those comic book stores that people know of. You got Midtown Comics, you have Mile High Comics. Those are comic book companies or stores. I keep tripping over my words here, people, that people know of. And it is sad, like you said, this guy he had to be a patron, and those are books that may never get back to the store, and someone's got to find this guy. But I think personally, the best part of this story, though, is it is sad that he stole the comic books, but the freaking idiot, after, basically cutting himself up, he's using toilet bowl cleaner and all these different kinds of basically household cleaners to try to clean up the blood. Now, they're going to catch this guy. If he's got blood all over the store, it's just a matter of time before they get him.
Well, and books of this nature, you can't just sell. You can't just find someone off the street. I mean, you could, but you're not going to risk this much, because that's a couple felonies right there. You're not going to risk that sort of trouble just to sell a book for $100. You're not going to be able to sell a book like that for a couple thousand without triggering some sort of search. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm not trying to, be a professional criminal, but something like this is something you're going to end up having to sit on for 20 years or so and possibly pass on to your children so that they can make the money off of it. So I think our last bit of news here is actually a really, really hilarious story. I mean, how could you get any funnier than an idiot cutting himself while stealing comic books and then using cleaners to clean his blood? Well, we got Marvel Comics issue 1000. They had a variant cover, and they actually have to pull the cover. And you want to know the reason? Well, they used DC artwork on their cover. This cover actually had a small little snippet of Alan Scott, who is one of the Green Lanterns, kissing their partner. So it was a gay kiss on the cover. And even the artist for that particular DC piece, Nicholas Scott, he went on Twitter with the remarks, that's my gay kiss art. I'm getting a check, right? So Marvel is pulling that. They're going to have to work on something new. But I mean, Cody, how do you think that made it past?
I have no idea. And I'm looking at it, and it's a nice little collage, and you see it like it's right on the right, in the middle almost, and it's off to the very right, and it's clear as day. And I have no idea. Whoever did this must not have cared. and they just pretty much just smashed it and, you know, did a collage without double checking. Like, who lets this type of thing just run through? You know what I mean? Without double checking and verifying that everything on there's legit. Like, you had to literally like pull it from a DC comic.
Yeah, I'm almost kind of thinking if this person didn't do it on purpose, because like you said, okay, I get it's a collage, so there's no actual drawing going on, but you said it, you have to pull it from the source material. So they had to. The pages came from a DC book. I mean, how did they not know? Oh wait, maybe I shouldn't put the Green Lantern kissing his boyfriend on the cover of Marvel Comics issue 1000.
See, I'm wondering if a lawsuit's going to happen, because he mentioned wanting to get a check, and I wonder if he's going to get money, because issues, you know, like, have they been released yet?
Yeah, I was just about to say it never came to print, so there was. I don't think they're going to have to worry about any kind of lawsuits, because, you know, they immediately because they had shown the cover online just to kind of tease the fans, and that's when all of this the revelations came to play in. So they'll be fine. They're gonna come up with a brand new cover. They'll probably just, you know, cut out that part, throw Spider-Man kissing Mary Jane or whatever, and done deal, you know?
Well, that sums up our news for this week's podcast. Pet, I know you're excited, and I'm excited to go into Batman versus Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, that's right. I am excited because I am a huge fan of the Ninja Turtles. I have loved them for a very long time, and Batman's okay. He's cool, you know. But the movie is based on an actual DC IDW crossover, which I talked about earlier. It has artwork by Freddie Williams, and that artist, of course, we talked about was James Tynion. Oh, sorry, not artist, but the writer was James Tynion. And I mean, this movie, it was something that I can honestly say I was very much looking forward to. I have to agree that putting the Turtles with Batman, it makes sense. I mean, they are both essentially, you know, living in the dark and fighting crime in those, you know, those dark streets. I mean, what do you think about that team up?
Yeah, I mean, you got good old Bruce Wayne living in the Batcave. You got the Ninja Turtles in the sewers, you know, fighting crime at night, sticking to the shadows, sticking to the darkness. It was a pretty good team up. I really can't think of anything that would be like nearly as good as a mashup, you know, because it's two unsuspecting, you know, heroes teaming up. And I thought it went together well. I thought it was going to kind of be a clashing animation, but it actually was very awesome. I absolutely loved the art in it. I thought the Turtles looked really good. I'm not digging how a lot of these new Ninja Turtle cartoons and movies are coming out, like how they look, but in this one, they just look it was almost like Dark Knight Ninja Turtles in a sense with some of them, like how grimacing they looked and like just how rugged, you know. I loved it, man.
Yeah, and I think one of my favorite parts early in the film is there's a question of what's the difference between New York City and Gotham. And I mean, when you really think about it, like, you know, Gotham is New York City, right? But of course, our resident clown Ninja Turtle, Michelangelo, he does point out the difference. And I'm not going to spoil it for you. You got to watch the movie to find out. But, you know, straight to the point, I mean, there is a rash of tech thefts, you know? They've been going around, they've been happening in Gotham, and Bruce is trying to figure out who's behind those thefts. And we actually end up with one of the coolest showdowns that period that I've seen within the DC animated universe, and that is the Batman fighting against Shredder. I mean, you saw that fight, dude.
Yeah, it was intense. It was definitely like something I would have never envisioned. It was definitely crazy to see these two go head to head and push each other to the limits. Because as we know, Batman has studied martial arts for most of his life, but Shredder, he has the ways of ninjutsu that's just been unknown to men for many centuries. And it really was insane to see Bruce get pushed to the limits.
Yeah. Shredder put a hurting on him. That's for sure. Now, Gotham, of course, is being protected by the Dark Knight. So you can only assume that he's not really gonna to mesh well with these mutant ninja turtles, basically, popping up in his territory, on his turf, And it takes a while, but eventually, they come to terms and realize that they're on the same side. But what's really, really cool about this movie is, we have the Shredder, who's our big bad for the Ninja Turtles. We also have Ra's al Ghul, or Ra's al Ghul. I've seen it pronounced and heard it pronounced so many different ways, depending on if it's a movie, a cartoon, a TV show. So you call it what you want. But he's our big Batman bad. But DC and Warner Brothers did not stop there. We have a plethora of Batman's rogues. I'm talking about Mr. Freeze, Poison Ivy, Two-Face, Scarecrow, Penguin, Bane, Harley Quinn, and of course the Clown Prince himself, the Joker. I mean, they did not hold back on this one.
Yeah, and speaking of villains, we had a whole bunch of heroes join the force as well. We had Damian Wayne, Batgirl. Who else did we have? It was just insane, the team up of villains and heroes jumping into the movie, and just the way the action was animated was just phenomenal. Watching the turtles pop in and out of their shells and just their fighting styles. And dude, I gotta say, I love Troy Baker so much as the voice of Batman, and he just really did a spot on take with Bruce in this film. And even the voice actors for the turtles were awesome. I don't think I had any really negative comments for any of the voice acting or the animations. Dude, I just thought DC really killed it.
I love that you bring up Troy Baker, because he has always been a wonderful Batman. But in this movie, we got to see Troy pull double duty and pull off the voice of the Joker as well. And when you watch it, it was legit. I was digging the Joker. I was like, okay, this isn't Mark Hamill. It's not the Joker that I'm used to from cartoons, but this is still the Joker. So big props to Troy for being able to bring us Batman that we know and love, but also bring us a new take on the Joker. Now, I also want to point out that when you're watching this movie, you need to make sure that you are keeping your eyes and ears peeled, because there are quite a few Easter eggs throughout the entire movie. And, the first one that really stuck out in my mind was we got Batman chilling there in the Batcave, and Alfred brings him what looks like a cup of coffee, and it happens to be served to him in a Superman mug. That's right. Batman drinks his coffee out of a Superman mug. I don't know how you felt about that, but
yeah, dude, that was pretty comical. I love when they do little tie-ins and stuff like that. There's a lot of things too, especially if you're familiar with the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon. You get to see this little muscle for hire, all kinds of things. And I really just loved how Al Ghul and Shredder were teamed up. They were hand in hand. And it was just something like that just meshed so well and perfect. I really gotta say, you guys gotta take a moment, if you get a chance, to sit down and watch this animation. It's one of my newly found favorites from DC. DC really just kills it with the animated movie series, and they're continuing that trend with this movie, I would say.
Yeah, I think everyone out there who reads comics and watches movies based on comics and watches TV shows and all that stuff, I think they would all agree that DC is the far superior brand or universe when it comes to the animated stuff. And in this movie, it definitely does not change at all. Now, one thing to point out is I feel like the way you love the art so much and you like the way everything was kind of designed, you also have to give a little bit of a shout out to Jake Castorona. This guy has been working with DC for quite a long time. He's done the Death of Superman. He's done quite a few episodes of Justice League Action. He's even done a few episodes of Batman Unlimited. Now, that's only as a director. Now, the guy has also been behind the scenes, just doing art assets and things like that for DC Animation. So, I mean, I've talked about it a couple episodes back. I believe we watched I want to say it was it was Superman, the Reign of Superman. That's right. Reign of Superman. And we talked about Phil Brusa. These two guys, Phil Brusa, Jake Castorona, they are the heartbeat of DC's animated universe. They are the guys who give us the blood, the action, the awesome fighting scenes. They need props. They need to keep doing what they're doing, and hopefully they work together on a project really soon, because I would really be looking forward to that.
Absolutely. With that, I think it sums up our review on this movie. We're trying to keep things a little bit spoiler-free this time, as opposed to kind of just doing a play-by-play breakdown. So you might have noticed a little bit of difference from this and Detective Pikachu, but we're just pointing out that we're not trying to do full-on spoilers. But sometimes it's just so hard to talk about a movie without mentioning a part that just really sucked you in.
Yeah, and if you like that new format that we just did for the movie review, please don't hesitate to send us some love in an email if you want. You can hit us up at contact@talkgeekly.com. You, of course, can check us out on our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. All of that's Talk Geekly. We want feedback, guys. We want to know what you want us to change. What would you like us to add? Or just even if you want to say, hey, I really dug what you guys said about that movie and I can't wait to see it.
Absolutely. And with that being said, guys, this is going to sum up today's podcast for Talk Geekly. Stay tuned. We're coming at you with the heat next week with more issues, more news, and of course, the lovely Pendragon and Jaffer Cody.
That's right. So keep it geekly.
What's that in the sky? It's a bird. It's a plane. It's Talk Geekly.